From the beautiful Finger Lakes region of upstate New York, this is the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. We take questions from anyone in the dental profession and discuss what it takes to win not only in dentistry, but in life. Business, leadership, relationships, parenting, health and wellness, money management, nothing is off limits on the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. I'm Jason Tenori, your host, and have over 20 years of experience to pull from. Learn from my mistakes and let me help you collapse time so you can become the best version of yourself. Yo, welcome back. Dr. Jason here, Dental Lighthouse Podcast, and super excited about my guest today. And the reason I'm excited is, I'll be 100% honest with you. I have lots of people reach out for individualized coaching or for joining our mastermind. And when I have discovery calls with them, it's not good, right? It's either constant turnover. It's I'm really struggling in my leadership. It's I'm in the red month over month, or we're producing a lot, but we're not taking home a lot. And I love those clients. Don't get me wrong, because it's easy to implement some pretty basic stuff and see results right away. But my guest today reached out for some mentorship and some coaching. And when I had the discovery call with him, I was blown away by how much he has his shit together. And then when we decided to do something together, we have an onboarding document for all coaching clients. So he filled that out and he sent it to me. And I'm looking at it and I'm reading all the answers that he's giving me. And I'm like, should he be reaching out to me for mentorship, or should I be reaching out to him for mentorship? So this guy's got his stuff together, and I really wanted to get him on the podcast and kind of unpack his situation and have the listeners realize that everyone needs a coach at some point in their life. And I would argue that everyone needs a coach for their entire life. But you don't need a coach only when things are going really, really bad. It's oftentimes better to be in a good situation and talk to someone about what your blind spots are, or having another perspective so you can ultimately go from good to great. So with that context, I'd like to welcome Dr. Tanner Brown to the podcast. Tanner, how you doing, brother?
Jason, thank you. I appreciate you saying all that. You can say all that and I can still feel like an imposter the entire time. And I think that is a trait a lot of achievers have. And I don't know if you fully worked yourself through that or went through it yourself, but it's something I've battled. But thank you. Yes, I agree with everything you're saying there. And coaching has been in all aspects of my life, whether it's dental, fitness, marriage. You need an outside perspective. We get so close to the situation. It's a mirror to your personality and your decision making, and it's very helpful, and it's helped me get to where I'm at.
Yeah, so well said. So Tanner, why don't you give some context of your current situation? We don't need a book, but just a couple minutes of, what started this journey for you, where you're at in the country, how big is the practice, how big do we want it to get to? Just so the listeners have a little bit of context about your specific situation.
Yeah, I'll try to be brief. So I graduated in 19, worked for about 6 months, and I got laid off during COVID. And that was pretty tough because, you get out and you're ready to contribute to the world, and then someone tells you can't work anymore. So a lot of reflection during those 3 months. And, I decided I didn't want someone to tell me I can't work again. Ended up finding an off-market practice. I bought it in 21. We grew out of that 6-op space and kind of had a fork in the road. Do I just drop insurance and do fee for service, or do I grow a group? For me, dentistry can be a lonely sport, and surrounding myself with other doctors and a team and just that leadership side of it all appealed to me. So I bought a building. We built out 12 ops. And so we moved in 2024. And I thought that was my 5-year plan. We filled it within a year. Or I could see the writing on the wall that at about a year and a half or 2, we would be totally at capacity. So that really shook me. My goals, it was really exciting to see that, but then it was like, well, what's next? At the time I was 31, right? It's like, I got a whole life, and like, was this it? Like that, I did the thing, and I kind of got lost a little bit. And the more I thought about it, it's like, I want to keep pursuing this so long as I'm passionate about it and that I enjoy it and I love the challenge and the person I've had to become to get to this point. I want to meet the next version of myself. So I started thinking a lot bigger. And so from that, it was, do we do multiple practices or one big location? And the more I thought about it, keeping culture, community, team, systems, growing that in a single flagship, I love the idea of. So we made plans to expand my 12-op practice to 22 to build off the current building we have. Actually, just went through some of the loan paperwork, so I'm hoping to break ground soon. I'll take a shovel to the dirt if I have to, just to get some progress. Um, but that was a long journey of trying to plan that out. And the more we planned it, the more I could see it. Yeah, this is going to happen and this is going to work. And I'm actually going to fill this up. Like I can see where it's going. And so ultimately I decided to expand that and find a second location, which I closed on yesterday, funny enough. And so, plans to grow, right? I made this 3 to 5 year plan that I could keep going. And so I've kind of getting lost in the weeds. Let me take a step back. A lot of what I've learned is that, everyone talks about private equity, build private equity to sell it. And that deflated my passion. The idea that I'm going to do all this and just let it go. And a lot of the guys that I've talked to who've done that, they regret it, right? They burn themselves out for 10 years. They miss the kids. They miss their wife. Like those golden years you have where your parents are healthy, your kids are young, like you worked and grinded through that and you kind of miss out on it. And so trying to use coaching to learn from other people, right? I want to build in a more sustainable way. And I also want something to be excited about long term. So, as of now, I don't plan to sell. I keep building. And, I want to have 3 large locations in the region I am in. And I think that is a model that works well. I think 3 to 5 doctors, $5 million practices to 8 maybe is probably where the industry is going, right? Moving away from small practices. Jason, you know better than I would, but like I know 4-op practices don't really sell anymore. And I'd imagine 20 years from now, 8-ops aren't going to be as valuable as they used to be. So right now we do right around close to 6 million probably this year in our single 12-op. When we expand that, I assume we'll do 8 to 10 plus. The location we just closed on is about 30 minutes north. And, I think we'll grow that to probably a 12-op, 5 million location. And then there's a third market I want to be in. And so I'm trying to get very clear on these markets and say no to everything else. And I think, as you get a little more success, there's a lot more opportunity. And that's been something I've had to get really diligent on, is learning to say no to everything else outside of what I'm very clear on.
That's awesome. Really, really good summary of your current situation. And I'm not going to take this interview down the traditional path because what you're doing is not traditional. So I have some follow-up questions for what you just said. I'm blessed to have coaching clients that are one de novo all the way up to 8 to 10 locations and everything in between. And what I often find is people like myself, like you, like some of my other clients that are scaling, um, it's it's predictable for them. Like they have a vision and they set it in place, and then they just on a daily basis they just do the things that they need to do to get there. Versus sometimes when I'm introduced to a new coaching client who's struggling to keep 4 or 5 operatories busy. So with that context, why do you think personally in your situation you've been able to predictably scale the way you have up until this point, while I'm sure there's dentists down the street from you that have half their schedule open and they're barely making ends meet?
So I think there's a couple aspects. I would encourage 90% of dentists to grow a single location. They own the real estate with 2 other doctors. And that's probably the biggest wealth play and biggest fulfillment play. And a lot of people should probably stop there. Because there is that like itch to keep going. Specifically for me, when I started, I worked hard and I treated people well, right? Reputation, brand, right? Build the people around you, give the credit away. And over time, that effort and that strong, good intent combined with coaching and insight and just taking all this knowledge in and applying it, I think that's got the results I have today. Yeah, I was thinking about this yesterday. So I had an FMR in the morning, and then I closed on the practice in the afternoon, and I went to physical therapy that night. And like any one of those things by themselves would have been like a week long achievement for me, a few years ago. And our tolerance raises as we progress through this process. And it's interesting because there's years and days of planning and grinding and all these things, and it's just really boring, disciplined work. And you get these flashes of the pan from the outside. You're like, man, it's awesome. That must be so cool. It's like, honestly, most of the days it's not.
Right.
But if you are very clear on what you want and you just wake up and do it over and over, and it's no different than your fitness, no different than your faith, like you just have to be very committed and disciplined to what you're doing. And it's not exciting. There's really exciting moments and there's some cool benefits of life that come with the hard work. But, I don't do fantasy. I don't golf. Like, I don't go out and, hang out with a lot of the friends that I used to. And I enjoy this more and I'm wired that way. And I have a lot of fulfillment with fewer friends, but deeper relationships because, we talk about this kind of stuff or marriage or making your relationship with your kids better. And so, I don't know. I think it's a different quality of life that I'm chasing and that I'm working towards. And along with that comes just, a lot of regular days that you just have to put that work in and be disciplined, take action on what your coaches say. Hard conversations. I know we always say that, like the level of the quality of your life is related to the number of hard conversations you're going to have, like 100%. And the more you can do it in your job, the more you can do it at home, the more you can do it with your friends, your parents. I mean, man, I feel like I'm rambling, but there's a
No,
lot
there's
that
a
goes
lot of,
into this, but it's simpler than you think.
yeah, there's a lot of truth to what you just said. I'm curious where, you use the phrase who I'm trying to become or how you kind of get fired up with what you're doing. What is it specifically that you're doing? Because the hardest part of working with a coaching client, at least early on, is having them have a crystallized vision of where they're trying to go.
Yep.
And it could be a premier clinician that works out of, you know, a 5 op practice, does 3 million and takes home half of that, right? And more of a lifestyle practice. It could be a serial entrepreneur or someone that is just their whole heart is into leadership development of people around them. So what is it for you? Like, what is this next version of yourself? Like, what are you striving for? Is it the clinical play? Is it the entrepreneurial play? Is it the leadership development play? Like, what gets you out of bed?
If we want to go to a therapy session of things that happened when I was younger, we could. But ultimately, it's always been people. Um, I have come to find out and even more firmly believe the value you create around you comes back tenfold. And so,
Amen.
I think as dentists, we put our oxygen mask on first, as we should, right? Let me breathe. Let me buy a new car finally, maybe get a house, like start a family. But then you get pretty comfortable. And the only thing that's going to keep you pushing is watching the people around you lift up, right? I've got an associate who was, he thought he picked the wrong career. He'd pull up to his old job, sit in the parking lot, and just kind of dread going inside. And then, we were a couple months in him joining us. He's like, dude, like, I'm so happy. Like, I'm better at home. We just bought my wife a new car. Like, his marriage is better. Like, it's just, that's what it's about. It's just rallying people and getting the right community together. And other dentists have other reasons. This is how I'm wired, right? I'm wired for
Yeah.
people. I'm wired for impact. And as I've gotten on a bigger scale, now it's like with dentistry, it's like, it's everyone talks about, oh, that practice sold and they were such a good reputation and now private equity is taking over and it all trends towards numbers and trimming margins. Like, yeah, there may be a mindset I learn and I get into later that changes my mind. But right now I haven't seen it done well. So I'm planting my flag to dental owned groups. I mean, that's where I'm at. And so that's what's driving me now is like, I want to be the guy who owns practices in this region, who actually sponsors the T-ball teams here, right? Who gives back to the community, who's right here next to me. And, that seems worthwhile. That seems like a good pursuit.
I love that, man. And and if I'm hearing you correctly, there's no judgment in your voice, right? So there's so many different ways to do it, right? To be a dentist, to be an entrepreneur, to be an owner. And the fact that, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the fact that your priority is people, relationships, is serving others, which is aligned with what I'm trying to do. Now, if there's other dentists listening to this and that doesn't fuel them, then awesome. Like you figure out how you can leverage your business to fuel what's important to you. But unless you have clarity on what's important to you, then you're going to be miserable and you're going to be just grinding daily. And then all of a sudden wake up one day and be like, what the hell am I doing? So 100% agree with your perspective of that's what gets me out of bed is just the idea of I get to have a tremendous amount of influence and impact on the people that are partnering with me for lack of a better term. And by that, I mean my employees, my patients, the communities in which I have locations. And that's what fills up my cup. I keep going back to this Dave Ramsey image where I was at one of his lectures and he talks about this cup and saucer image where to the point that you were so eloquently making, Tanner, as dentists, as heads of household, however you want to phrase it, we need to fill up our cup first, right? We need to be able to take care of us and more importantly, our family and our immediate network. And that's the image of filling up this cup. But we don't necessarily have to stop when the cup is full. We can continue to fill up this cup, and the overflow that ends up in the saucer is so much of how we could help and serve other people, other patients, other communities. And I just love that imagery because it allows me to continue to pour into my cup. And we have control over how big or how small we want our cup to be, right? Like I don't have an extravagant type of lifestyle, but it's really awesome compared to what it could have been. So I have a certain size cup and I just love the idea of creating overflow so I can have so many other people in my life that are benefiting from what we're doing. And it sounds like you're kind of headed for a similar path.
Yeah, you had said that on our discovery call, and that really stuck with me. And I just kept thinking to myself, like, if not me, then who? Almost a responsibility to do. And I think that's another part to earlier is like, I feel like there's a responsibility because I can do it. Right. And, I'm faith based and, you know, I'm very careful to say, oh, God called me to do that. Like I never really, but I don't know, I just took it with a grain of salt. I was like, yeah, do you really know that? But when I do look back on how my career is lined out, like it's laid out pretty well. Like I
Yeah.
don't deserve what I have and I don't deserve to be where I'm at. And I'm not saying, oh, I'm called to do this, but I'm really good at it. And,
Yeah.
and I've got a really good intent and a really good heart. So like, if not me, then who? So
Yeah.
that drives me a lot too.
I love that. You probably heard me say this on the podcast, but I stole this from Ed Milet. He called it the definition of hell. So it's living your life how you thought you were supposed to live it. It's then
Oh yeah.
dying. And then as you're walking to meet Jesus in the afterlife, there's someone standing next to him. And as you get closer and closer to Jesus, you see this person standing next to him and you say, hey, Jesus, who is this? And Jesus responds of this is the person I created you to be.
Yeah.
And do I recognize that person or not? Now I'll never be an identical twin to that person, but my biggest fear or my definition of hell is getting to heaven and not recognizing that person and be like, wow, I really blew an opportunity here. God created me to do a certain thing or to be a certain way. And I really screwed the pooch on it. And that scares me. I mean, not from a fear-based perspective, but from an opportunity cost perspective of like, I could have had so much more influence and impact in serving others, but I didn't. And there's definitely like a little bit of anxiety and fear in my life when it comes to that. So, and it sounds like you have a similar mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And then at the same time, to your point earlier, it's very important to, hey, there's no judgment if you're in it for the money or to sell. Like we each have our own wiring and where
Yeah.
other people might be impactful in other areas of their life. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to do this. That's what's cool about dentistry.
So let's pivot a little bit because it's interesting having conversations with someone like you, and I'm making a gross generalization here, but who really hasn't seen an obstacle yet, right? Who it sounds to me like everything that you set out to do, it just comes to you. Now it's a lot of hard work, it's a lot of
Yeah.
discipline, it's a lot of preparation. It could be a little bit of luck, a little bit of market timing, stuff like that. But you haven't really, if I'm hearing you correctly, you haven't really faced an obstacle yet. Like if you had to guess, um, as you're fulfilling your vision over the next 3 to 5 years, what are some of the things that you're thinking that could be obstacles to what you're trying to do?
Yeah. Obviously I'm naive to what I don't know. I will say there were a lot of sleepless nights and things that shook me, right? And my marriage and things like that through the process of being a business owner. And that's just, a quick side note. It's like, I wish I had a low light reel to show like new doctors who join this well-oiled machine. Like, oh, like, why does he get to leave early? It's like, buddy, you don't want this. Like, as you get, as you get more responsibility, like you get less freedom. It's not what you think. It's the
Yeah, fair,
exact opposite.
fair.
But to your point, yeah, I mean, we have worked well. I try to keep a constant mindset of why is this happening to me, right? Why is this happening for me, right? Like, walk in, the internet's down. Hey, this is great. This never happened. Let's make a system so we know what to do next time. Like, it's just having that person. The situation is not going to change, right? You're in a situation, so choose to see how it can help you, and like that's going to make the biggest difference in your business. Um, yeah, we all like to complain a little bit. Like, that's fair, but like, give it an hour and move on. Right. And I've always felt better taking action. And I've always found a way that any problem I've run into has actually become a good thing. So moving forward, the obstacle that I have now, um, when I bought the practice, even when I did the building, when I signed those loans, I knew worst case, I could go in there 5 days a week and cover it. Now, just signed a loan for our second practice and our expansion on our large building. Is a different feeling because I can't go save the day. I could go work 6 days a week and I couldn't do it. And so that was a different type of intimidation that I have not had before. And so if I were to foresee a problem, it would be that I'm not building into the people around me enough to work through their hands. Whether that's leading and coaching my manager, my doctors, my team, the culture, right? The alignment, the patient interactions. I've done very well being in the building doing it, but do I have my inner circle, you know, your apostles, disciples, right? Like your core, like, are they believers enough to carry that vision when you're not in the room? I believe I do. I know there will be problems and we'll have to pivot and understand. And that's one thing I've always been really good at too is, if someone messes up, like I don't yell, I don't get mad. It's like, okay, this is a learning opportunity. I've messed up plenty of times too, right?
Yeah.
I'm a vulnerable leader and I lead with all my mistakes. And, if you do that first, they're going to be comfortable doing it as well. But, yeah, I think that's going to be, understanding at a higher level, the cash flow, the P&L, all of those things. But more importantly is making sure that, the team knows very clear and simple, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? How do we do it?
Yeah, love it. So depending on where dentists are in the country, I feel like they are going to face different obstacles, right? Um, like I have a couple clients in Houston, and their biggest obstacle is space, right? They want to expand, but it's just so busy, right? And another one of the obstacles in that particular market is saturation, right? So the new patient flow, getting it to where it needs to be, stuff like that. One of the obstacles that they don't typically face is a pool of employees to choose from, right? Where in my particular situation, I have tons of space, I have tons of patients, but the pool of people to join me to train up is definitely the obstacle. So, from my perspective, and when I was in your situation, by far the biggest obstacle was finding the right people and having the skill set to train them up, both clinicians and non clinicians. And I get asked all the time about what the hardest thing for me was as I scaled. It wasn't me being the best leader to my team. It was me developing the next level of leadership so they can be leaders to their teams. And
Yes.
I found that to be extremely difficult. Now, I'm we're better off now than we were 5 years ago, but man, it's a constant like this is what I'm called to do, right? And I know you're probably a big producer at the chair, but and you alluded to this a little bit. When you can figure out how to create impact and influence through others, you exponentially increase the revenue outside of your own hands. And when you get to that point, it's really exciting. But it's just it's really hard to predictably get to that point. So I'm excited about you getting to that point. And I'm excited about trying to fold time for you and help you get to that point because once that happens, and you never arrive, right? But you just get better at it.
Yep.
Once that happens, you start to see this flywheel of momentum and you're like, huh, I don't need to be in the building. They still had you know, 30, $40,000 day. And we actually were able to keep a little bit of money at the end of the day as well.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that is going to be one of my big ones. Employees, we have pretty strong branding, and we're about to double down on that. Even though we're booked out and we can't fit new patients, like with the momentum that we have, I'm trying to get that going even further for these new locations. Space is going to be an issue, but I don't think it'll be a huge problem to find more space out here. If anything, it might be personal cash flow and debt leverage with the bank at my younger
Hmm.
age is like I'm gonna have to put up a bigger fight to try to go get that space. Cause and you correct me if I'm wrong, but like if you're going to build something 15, 20 ops, it's almost risky to lease it versus own it. I don't know. I could be wrong on that, but when they get that big and if they ever kick you out of lease, like that's not a cheap build out. So, yeah, I mean, is it a wealth play long term? Yeah, but like, is it protective of the business? Absolutely. So
Yeah, yeah. We're in the process. We just broke ground a couple months ago on a 45 operatory practice.
that's wild.
And to your point, like I'm not going to lease. It's 2,300 or 23,000 square feet, and I'm not leasing that because of the investment in the build out. So you make a great point. It's a big investment, right? It's a
Yep.
10 million plus project, but if the play is a legacy play, if the play is, one of my first coaches used to joke with me, it's like, Jason, we want to get you to the point where you insist that your granddaughter has a prenup in place. And I'm like, huh, I never thought about it like
That's funny.
that. Yeah. So, well, this has been awesome, man. I mean, I really appreciate the vulnerability. I really appreciate the transparency. Um, and to be honest with you, I'm excited to work with you one on one, selfishly because I feel like I could learn a lot, and I feel like maybe I can help you kind of accelerate your timeline as well. So,
No, yeah, I
any
really appreciate it. Oh, God.
any final thoughts? Any final questions before we hop off?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, I mean, for any dentist, but the younger ones for sure, like, a year before I got out of school, I told myself the first 5 years, all my investments go to me. And what I mean by that, it's not 401k, it's not all these other things. It's education, it's coaching, it's figuring out that mindset that will carry you the next 30 years after that. And I'm so happy I stuck to it. And that, call me dumb or not for not maxing out my 401k my first few years. Like I'll argue that I built the machine bigger, so like I'm gonna be better off. So like your wealth advisors, all these things. Yeah, if you can do it both, you can. But like have a good voice in your ear, right? Do the research and have someone challenge you to push your beliefs. Because I've had tens of 20s of glass ceilings I've had to break through, and you have to be exposed to bigger picture things to get there. And we just have very limited mindsets. I still do. The version of me now is a limited mindset compared to where I'll be next year and the year after that.
I love that, man. It just reminds me, I've been doing this for 25 years, maybe 23, 24 years ago. Me and another specialist in town signed up for a 12-month Carl Mish course. Now I'm dating myself here, but those of you guys who don't know who Carl Mish is, he was kind of like the godfather of implant dentistry in the States, and he put on a very good surgical and prosthetic curriculum before these implant curriculums even became a thing. Now there's dozens of them. Back in the day, there was like one or two. Anyways, we're driving and we didn't have a ton of money. So we're driving from upstate New York to Detroit, which is where it was one weekend a month. And I remember having a conversation with the doc in the car about retirement. And me, it's so funny that you bringing this up, Tanner, but me talking to him about how when I spend this money on the CE, I don't have enough money to fully fund my 401k. And I'm worried about retirement. And he was about 10 years older than me and so much more wisdom than I had at the time. He's like, you're building something that is going to be independent of your 401k. Like if you are relying on your 401k to fund your retirement, then we're having the wrong conversation here. Like you're going to build something where it doesn't even matter what your 401k does. This business, this influence that you're going to have, what you're going to create is going to be 10 times over to help you through not only your retirement, but create this legacy for your kids and for your grandkids. And it was at that moment, I'm like, that he just identified a blind spot for me, right? Oh, so I don't rely on my 401k to fully fund my retirement. Oh, okay. Yeah, let's rely on this business that could ultimately grow and become a machine independent of me, and I'll have that be the source of my retirement and my legacy. And without having those types of conversations with people, without exposing yourself to those types of conversations, then you continue to have these blind spots. So I think what you just said was so beautifully articulated.
Thanks. Yeah, no, it's done wonders for me, and it will continue to do so.
Awesome. So, Tanner, if anyone has any, they want to reach out to you, learn a little bit more about your story. I know eventually you're going to do some coaching. You're certainly well on your way to be more than qualified to do it. How could anyone reach out that just has some additional questions for what you got going on?
Yeah, Dr. Tanner Brown, just Dr. Is my Instagram. My email is tanbrn10 I love this stuff. I could talk this stuff all day. Would love to help the younger version of me, because there's a lot of things I wish I would have been told. But also very thankful for everything that I'm standing on the shoulders of a lot of coaches that have got me to this point. So
Yeah, awesome perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Tanner Brown.
Thank you. That wraps up another episode of the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. You have a choice today. Choose to be a lighthouse. Lighthouses are powerful and steadfast. They are beacons of light for others to reference when life gets turbulent. Go out into the world today and become a lighthouse for someone. Give more than you get. True joy comes from serving others. Start today. I'm Jason Tenori, your host. Thank you for listening to the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. For more information, podcast show notes, or links to anything that we have discussed today, please check out our website, thedentallighthouse.com. We would love to hear from you. If you would like to get on the show, please email us at podcast@thedentallighthouse.com.